All right, so we are learning about 6.2 today, which is trapezoids. So it says a trapezoid is a quadrilateral with exactly one pair of parallel sides called the bases. So one thing we kind of know what a trapezoid is. We've seen them before. And they're asking here, is it a type of parallelogram? What do you guys think? Is a trapezoid like a parallelogram? Yes or no? Who says, yep, gotta be? Who says, no, not really? It kind of has some properties of parallelogram because it has the bases are parallel, right? But it's not completely a parallelogram. So I'm going to put here no. And it's because a parallelogram has two pairs of parallel sides. Trapezoids only have one. So the non-parallel sides are called the legs. So if I kind of drew a picture here, the legs would be here and here. And they're saying if the legs are congruent, so they're equal to each other, so it would look something like this, then it is an isosceles trapezoid. Now, one thing I want you to do is I want you to highlight isosceles trapezoid for each of these, because these rules are specific to isosceles trapezoids. So each pair of base angles of an isosceles triangle are congruent. And what they're saying here, those two would be considered the base angles of an isosceles trapezoid. Opposite angles of an isosceles trapezoid are supplementary. And what they're saying here, and then the diagonals of an isosceles trapezoid is also congruent. So when they mean opposite angles, they're talking about like this angle and this angle will equal 180 degrees. And these diagonals, if I called this like A, B, C, D, we would state that AC would be congruent to BD. So just to reiterate some of these rules down here. Sorry, is anybody still copying this down before I move on? Okay. So just to reiterate some of the rules, again, this is a much cleaner picture. A, B, C, D. Okay. We would have this congruent with this. Another fun fact is that this is also congruent with this. Okay. Those are the congruent diagonals. And remember, these are equal to 180 degrees. Okay. I'm also going to list some things. So we're going to state that angle D is congruent to angle C. Angle B is congruent to angle A. And then we're going to have DB would be congruent with AC. Okay. So those are all the parts that you would need to know. This is for isosceles only. All right, now let's look at our foldable real quick. Just take that out. I want you guys to look under the flap that says properties of a trapezoid. There are 3 properties of a trapezoid here. It says one pair of opposite sides are parallel, adjacent angles are supplementary, the median is parallel to the bases and divides the non-parallel sides into congruent parts. Okay, median is also known as a mid-segment. We'll talk about that more in a moment. But these properties of trapezoids also apply to the properties of an isosceles trapezoid. So with these 3, if you have just a basic trapezoid, those 3 properties apply. If you have an isosceles trapezoid, which is the window below that, it says a trapezoid has an isosceles if, you're not only going to have the properties of a regular trapezoid, you're also going to have 3 additional properties for it. So in that case, the lower base angles and upper base angles are congruent, diagonals are congruent, and the lower base angles are supplementary to any upper base angle. So all 6 of those apply to isosceles trapezoids. Just trapezoid would be just the top 3. Okay? Any questions on those 2 windows? All right. Let's move on. So let's talk about this next part. The segment that joins the midpoints of legs of a trapezoid is called the midsegment. On your foldable, it's called a median. It means the same thing. If you want to change median of a trapezoid and put in parentheses midsegment, I'd highly recommend it. You are going to have a take-home quiz on Friday. Couldn't hurt to have that information. Just throwing that out there. What happened? Also, I would open it up and it says median M. Again, put parentheses mid-segment. So the mid-segment or median is parallel and equidistant. Let me write that below. Equidistant from each base. Equidistant means equal length. So think of another way as congruent. Okay. So here is our theorem. It says, theorem, the mid-segment of a trapezoid is parallel to the bases. So if we're looking at this, all 3 of these are parallel to each other. And its measure is half the sum of the bases. So if I were to label this, again, A, B, C, D, here would be E, and here we'll have F. We're going to state that EF is the midsegment. Remember, also known as a median of the trapezoid. The formula is going to be that EF is going to equal 1/2 segment AB or base AB plus CD. So we're saying this base and this base, the sum of that divided by 2. Questions on that? The other thing you need to note here is that these point F and point E act as a midpoint for AD and BC. So we're going to state that this would be congruent with this, and this would be congruent with that. This does not necessarily mean that BC or AD are congruent to each other. So I'm going to state here, do not assume AD is congruent to BC. That's a big time no-no. You need additional information because then it makes it an isosceles trapezoid. And that is not what they're saying here. Okay? Not saying that we can't have a mid-segment with an isosceles trapezoid. We just needed further information to show that it's isosceles. Any questions on this before we move on to the backside? Okay, so QRST, let's move on to the back. Example 1, QRST is an isosceles trapezoid with bases QR and ST and mid-segment XY. They want us to find TS if QR is 22 and XY is 15. So I am going to draw this trapezoid. So we're saying this is Q, R, and then we'll have S, and then T. Now the reason I'm drawing like this, because I said QR and ST are the bases. That's important information when labeling, okay? And then they're telling us I have this mid-segment, which they call X, Y. Now they're saying QR is 22 and XY is 15. We do not know what TS is. Now remember, this is just a picture. These two could potentially be flip-flopped also. We don't know, but it's just a picture to give us an idea of what lands where. So if I look at this, I'm going to say that I'm going to have XY is equal to 1/2 times TS plus QR. XY is 15. TS I labeled as X and QR I labeled as 22. Now I want to eliminate this fraction. We don't like fractions, right? How am I going to do that? What do I do to both sides of this equation to get rid of the 1/2? Who remembers? Anybody? Good. Yeah, multiply both sides by 2. Very good. We just multiply it by that denominator. So this leaves me with 30 equals X plus 22. I'm going to subtract the 22 from each side. This leaves me with X equals 8, which is TS. So in this case, TS is equal to 8. How we doing? All right. Any questions before I move on to problem 2? All right, problem 2 is telling me, it says, find the measure of the 4 angles of the trapezoid if the measure of Q is 4a minus 10 and the measure of T is 3a plus 32. Now, they originally stated that this is an isosceles trapezoid. So if I look in my foldable, all of these rules for isosceles trapezoids apply. Now, I have my picture right here. I'm not going to redraw a new one unless you choose to. But if you do, it's going to look something kind of like this. All right, I'm going to have, let's say, I'm just going to put Q, R, S, and then T. All right, and they're telling me that Q is 4A minus 10 and T is 3A plus 32.5. Those two, remember, if this is parallel to this, these are same side interior angles. So these are supplementary. And I'm going to set this equation up as 4A minus 10 plus 3A plus 32.5 equals 180. When I combine my like terms, I have 7A, let's see, plus 22.5 equals 180. I subtract the 22.5 from each side. This leaves me with 7A equals, I've got 157.5. And I'll divide everything by 7. So I'm left with A equals, in this case, I got 22.5. So that takes care of the first part, but in the end, they're asking us, what are the angles, right? So we're going to have to substitute this back in to find angle Q and angle T. So for the measure of angle Q, that's going to be 4 times 22.5. Not plus, sorry, minus 10. Which gives us, I got 80. And then the measure of angle T is going to be 3 times 22.5 plus 32.5. And here I end up getting 100 degrees. So those are our two angle measures. Questions on example 1? Anything? Is anybody still writing? Because I am going to erase it. Are we okay? All right. So example 2, it says JKLM is an isosceles trapezoid with JK parallel to LM and mid-segment RP. So again, I'm going to draw that. So here, I'm just going to kind of draw it off to the side. Here is my trapezoid. Here's my mid-segment. We're calling this JKLM. And then we have, oops. Let me fix that actually. We have JKLM. There we go. Those are the bases. And then we have, because this is parallel to that, so those have to be the bases. And then we have R to P. So they want us to find RP if JK is 2 times X plus 3. And they want RP as 5 plus X. And then ML is 1/2 X minus 1. So there's a lot going on here. In the end, though, remember that RP is going to equal 1/2 times JK plus ML. So what I'm going to do first is I want to simplify this so I no longer have the fraction. Does that sound good? Let's do that now before we add all this stuff in, right? So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. And this is going to leave me with 2 RP equals JK plus ML. Now that's a little bit more simplified. So now I'll take this and I'll substitute it in here and then solve. So we're going to have 2RP. 2RP is going to be 2 times 5 plus x equals JK, which is 2 times x plus 3. And then we're adding that to ML, which is 1/2 x minus 1. Does that make sense? Is there anybody that has any questions on what I did there? All right, I'm going to distribute. So this is going to leave me with 10 plus 2x equals 2x plus 6, and we still plus 1/2 x minus 1. Combine my like terms over here. I'm going to have, let's see, it looks like 2 and 1/2, so let's say 2.5x plus 5 equals 10x plus, or sorry, not 10x, 10 plus 2x. I'm going to subtract the 2x from each side. This leaves me with 10 equals 0.5x plus 5. And I'll subtract the 5 from each side. So right now I have 5 equals 0.5x. Divide both sides by 0.5. I'm getting x is equal to, looks like 10. So RP ends up being what? What do we think? It wants to find RP. We substitute this in. This is going to be 5 plus 10. Oops, let me get a different color. So RP is equal to 15. I know, sorry, it kind of took a lot of space. I'm going to clear it. So if you're still writing, please let me know right now. Anybody still writing? Okay, I'll give you a minute. All right, is anybody still writing? Are we all caught up? Okay. All right, example 2, it says find the measure of each base angle if angle L is equal to x and the measure of angle J is equal to 3x plus 12. Okay, so again, I'm just going to kind of draw this out. Just so I have it, I'm going to draw it the same way I did before because JK, so JK, LM, those bases are still the same. This is isosceles. We're not worried about the mid segment because we're just talking about angles. So this is congruent with this. And since it's isosceles, we know this is going to be congruent with this. This will be congruent with this. And they're telling us that L is equal to x and J is 3x plus 12. So if that's the case, okay, we know that this and this are congruent, so they are supplementary to each other. So we're going to have 3x plus 12 plus x equals 180. Someone tell me, what does x equal here? I want you guys to solve this one on your own. Go ahead. When someone has the answer, please let me know. Who's got it? What'd you get? So what does each angle or what does x equal here? Who can tell me? Who's got x? Good. You got x is 4. It's a little bigger. Good. 42. Nice job. Who wants to see it? Let's go over it real quick, just to be safe. Okay, so in this case, we have, let me erase this part. So if we combine like terms, we're going to have 4x plus 12 equals 180. We subtract the 12 from each side. That leaves me with 4x equals 168. And I divide both sides by 4, leaving me with x equals 42. So I'm going to take this 42 and I'm going to substitute it in. So this is going to be 3 times, I'm going to get a different color. So this is going to be 3 times 42 plus 12. And this is just going to be 42. So angle L is 42. And the measure of angle J is equal to 138. And they're also asking for the measure of each base angle. So K, the measure of angle K is going to be 138, and then the measure of angle M is going to be 42. Any questions that I can address so far? How are we doing? All right, one more example, and then I'm going to give you your homework, okay? And the homework you're just going to physically turn in to me tomorrow, because it's pretty short. Anybody still writing this down? Okay. Our example 3. TVZY is an isosceles trapezoid with bases TV and YZ. So I'm not going to create the trapezoid this time. We're just going to perform this as it lays. So find the length of the midsegment if TV, so that's a base, is 34, and YZ is 5. So again, remember, this is going to be the midsegment, I'm just going to call it M in this case, is going to equal 1/2 times TV plus ZY. So it's going to be 1/2 34 plus 5. So this is 1/2 of 39. So what's half of 39? Calculators are a grand thing. Who's got it? What's half of 39? What'd you get? I couldn't hear you. What? Should be 18, right? Is that what you said, 18? Just gonna double check, make sure. Yeah, I got 19.5. Yeah, 19.5. So that's the length of your midsegment, 19.5. All right, find the measure of T and the measure of Z if the measure of angle V is 60. All right, so in this case, the measure of angle V is going to equal the measure of angle T. So that's also going to be 60 degrees. Now, to find Z, we're going to take the measure of angle T plus the measure of angle Z, set that equal to 180. So this is going to be 60 plus, I'm going to put Z here, equals 180. Or subtract 60 from each side. So in this case, the measure of angle Z is equal to 120 degrees. So we got all the angles there. Find TY if TY is 3x and VZ is 2x plus 4. So we're talking about those mid-segments. We're going to set those equal to each other. So 3x minus 8 equals 2x plus 4. You guys can work out the algebra, but in this case, x is going to equal 12. Because in this case, the legs, remember, are congruent. All right, questions on that? Anything? All right, I have homework for you guys. Come on up and get a sheet. I'm going to sit right here in the back. Grab a sheet before you leave. Those of you watching at home, have a great day. I'm sorry?